So I said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. I'm not going to a competitor. I'm not competing with you guys. I have no desire to get back into brokerage. Like, I love it, but I think that ship has sailed. But I'm going to build this company. We're going to do this in Mexico. We're going to staff.
Did you know that 91% of phishing attacks are conducted via email? Freight brokers are particularly at risk as email is the primary, really only option to collect carrier invoices, until now. EPay Manager, powered by OTR Solutions, is a back office automation and carrier payments platform that revolutionizes brokerage back offices with their proactive invoicing workflow, a centralized portal that gets you out of your email. The key to ePay's invoicing workflow is that the invoice is proactively triggered by the broker's TMS and is only created once the carrier reviews the details, which catches invoice disputes early on. This means that you can increase your invoice processing by up to 300 to 500% and reduce billing inaccuracies by 99%. Learn more about ePay by visiting epaymanager.com or text ePayFC to 80483 to see what they can do for your brokerage. We've partnered with Ascend TMS, the world's most popular and top-rated transportation management system. It's the ultimate tool for all your freight needs. You can use our referral code RA-FreightCaviar to receive 3 months of Ascend TMS for free. It only takes 20 seconds to sign up and no credit card is required. You can click the link below to learn more. Find shippers fast with shippercrm.com. Shipper CRM is a FreightCaviar product, and it is the first U.S. shipper database and freight CRM. Stop wasting time searching for shippers. Shipper CRM is the fastest way to find the shippers you should be working with. This purpose-built sales platform offers 4 key features: U.S. shipper database, access 51,000 research shippers, Magic Map, a revolutionary search engine that helps you quickly find your ideal shippers, Magic Contacts, logistics contacts that automatically update themselves, Relationship Manager plus integrations. Seamlessly manage shipper relationships with built-in CRM tools and integrations. Supercharge your sales process with Shipper CRM. Learn more by going to shippercrm.com. Welcome back to another episode of the FreightCaviar Podcast. We are here in Chicago once again. I am with my co-host Christian Gebbies, co-founder of Shipper CRM and FreightCaviar. And today we are joined by Danny Frisco, the CEO and co-founder of Rapido Solutions. Danny, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excited for this.
Definitely. We recorded an episode 2 years ago. I think it's like exactly 2 years ago, where we discussed a lot about your story, Rapido. Amazing episode. I remember posting that one clip about when you were in Coyote and your relationship truck driver, like the truck driver you had a relationship with, and like reached out to you, said, "Hey, I'm in Chicago. Let's hang out." And
like, awkward meeting.
Yeah, you wanted to smoke like a J with you or something, yeah, and you walked away. And that one actually like did so on Instagram. I remember like over 1,000 likes.
Yeah, we threw it on a clip.
Yeah. That was hilarious. But overall, we're going to discuss again like the story of Rapido, just to kind of like summarize that and like continue what you've been building on for the last 2 years and get an update for the last 2 years because a lot of things have changed since then. So super excited for this, Danny. If you could maybe just introduce yourself to the audience and kind of tell us, who you are and where you came from.
Yeah. So Danny Frisco, CEO and co-founder, like you said, started Rapido. It's coming up close on about 5 years now.
Wow.
Before that, spent about 10 years in the industry. So I worked at Coyote for close to 6.5, 7 years. Did a quick stint at a trucking company that I rarely talk about because it was so short-lived, and then finished my career 2 years at Blu Grace Logistics. So I helped them open their downtown Chicago office. They're at the Board of Trade. I think they're still there today, but it was a fun time. It felt like building a startup a little bit within a bigger company.
Sure. Blu Grace is like crushing it right now, aren't they?
I think they're doing well, yeah.
Blu Grace is at the Board of Trade?
Yeah, at least they were. I helped move them from, we were out in Itasca, and then we moved probably within 6 to 12 months of me joining, we moved the team to downtown.
Nice. So I know like you told us the story beforehand, but I think it'd be cool just to have like kind of like
a recap for those that didn't listen 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The new listeners, you started at Coyote when you finished University of Iowa,
Yep.
and they were still at their office in Lake Forest, right?
Lake Forest.
Yeah.
And then logo was still a coyote howling at the moon. It wasn't the cool like green and black we see today. Super old school. But yeah, I started off in Lake Forest.
Can you kind of like recap like your experience like being a Coyote, like, you know, undergrad, like coming into the industry? Like, what was it like? What year was it? And kind of take us through like those years at Coyote. Like, I feel like they really like probably shaped like the connections that you have here and like the network that you built, and also just like the industry experience that you brought along. So
yeah. So graduated Iowa 2010, but stayed for the summer. So my last summer of my senior year, I stayed. I worked a little bit, but wanted to enjoy some time off for the most part. Graduated in finance. You know, 2010, there weren't a ton of finance jobs available. So I was like, I don't know what to do. You know, I'll go into a sales role. I had two friends working at Coyote that I knew, and they said there were openings. And I was like, hell no, I'll go apply. I'll see what it's about. Got called to the interviewed out in Lake Forest. You know, unsurprisingly, wore like a really nice, you know, outfit, like tucked in button down, slacks, the whole nine. Go in and it's a bunch of kids in like t-shirts, backwards hats, you know, doing dip and having a lot of fun. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of a vibe right now. Like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Interviewed, had a good interview, got the job, started November of 2010. And I remember right away just realizing that this company was different than like I expected from the corporate working world. I thought it was going to be, you know, coming off of college and working college jobs and doing things like that. I thought it was just corporate all the way. Like you had to be super professional, any role, right? Whether it's finance or logistics, or I was just very ignorant to the fact that like there's young companies making impacts. So, you know, first day I go in, I'm in a training class. I think it was 12 people. They're all around my age. They're all kind of recent college grads. They're all really cool people. And we were kind of off the bat like, okay, this is different than I expected. Maybe I'll give it a longer chance than I thought I was. I thought I was just going to go in for like a year or two, get some sales experience, and then go back into finance. And then I'd stay there for like 7 years. And so I had a lot of fun, worked my way up into management after a couple of years of carrier sales. But during that time at Coyote, we had the office in Lake Forest, but it was multiple offices. So if you know Lake Forest, there's one kind of downtown area. We had offices like across the street from each other within different buildings. So it wasn't centrally located. Like customer side was maybe a block or two away from the carrier side.
Oh, wow.
So you couldn't even walk in the same office as each other. And then it was almost, you know, if you go into like a dentist's office and it's like 100 different offices in one building, it was kind of like that. It was like, all right, well, South Reefer team is in this little space on the third floor, and like Midwest van carrier sales is first floor in this little area. So it was fun.
You almost needed a map of the company, like where to find everybody.
Someone's got it somewhere.
I'm surprised like Jeff Silver set it up that way. I feel like he would want everyone to be in one room, right? Just because communication.
I can only imagine like he would desire everyone being under one roof together. I think what had happened was, you know, they started in 05, 06, around there. They just outgrew Lake Forest. It was kind of one of those things like, all right, this is temporary. We know it's temporary, but we're going to have to make it work. And then we moved to the GX. I forget when, but I want to say I was there at least a year before we made that move.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, I guess in Lake Forest, everyone was like, who are all these young kids coming into town? I know you mentioned there was like once like a sandwich shop that was just like crushing it because like all the Coyote stuff would go there. And then like once they left, it just was a little bit different. But I mean, for those that don't know, Lake Forest is like this nice suburb on the lake, on Lake Michigan. an hour north of Chicago. So like everyone was commuting in.
Yeah.
Like I'm guessing you were coming in from the city.
Yeah, I drove in. You drove in the city. So I lived with my parents.
Yeah.
Drove in from the city every day. A lot of people took the Metro.
Yeah.
Hey there, amazing listeners. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on our podcast, we need your support. It will only take a moment, but it would mean the world to us. Please make sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to share with one of your friends that would enjoy our content. Your engagement helps us reach more people and bring more awesome episodes to you. Thanks a million, and thanks for being part of the podcast community.
So that's like one of the final stops, I think, up there, or goes a little bit north, maybe.
It's definitely not close. And it probably took me, my parents are a little north in Chicago, probably 45 minutes to get out there.
Yeah.
And like an hour 15 to get home every day.
Damn. That's a cruise.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a broker, first year, I lived with my parents too. I had like a 30-minute commute, which I thought was like the perfect time. It was like 30 minutes in, 30 minutes back. But yeah, like it's interesting to hear like Coyote was out in Lake Forest and they opened up an office in Chicago. They expanded, grew really big. And then you were there for 7 years. So you saw like a lot of changes happen and the growth.
Yeah.
And there's actually like a piece that we want to write for FreightCaviar, and this might be like a good like soundbite. I'm curious, like, why do you think marketing wise Coyote was so successful?
So I think they actually practice what they preach. So a lot of their marketing came around the idea of this no excuses. That was their tagline when we did rebrand. So when we had the old school logo, like I can't remember if there was any tagline or anything like that, but when we rebranded and leaned into, the green and black and the new logo and the new office and everything, it was all based on the perspective of, and the tagline of no excuses. And it was no excuses. We move your load when we say we're going to move your load. We don't give loads back. I know like a lot of people have preached that, but I don't know in practice if that always happens. And there are stories of even before I was there, when Jeff would call the carrier sales team like over the holidays, it'd be like Thanksgiving night, be like, hey, we just got 20 Coca-Cola loads type of thing. And like people would come into the office. So there was this big like ownership level from a bunch of kids. We were all like in our early 20s. And I felt like I was making an impact on the industry. I know it sounds a little cliche, but at the time there was such good culture built around like, we're in this together. We're growing the company together. We're all young. Like no one's preaching that we know what we're doing at the end of the day, but we're going to work our ass off and just get it done and live up to this no excuses model.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Coyote was so successful, why a lot of their people have gone on to do successful things, and they just really honed in good, like green talent, created training around how they want it to work with the team, and it paid dividends for sure.
We talked to Ari Levy yesterday, interviewed on the podcast, and he had to start at Coyote as well. And like afterwards, when he left Coyote, he kind of saw like, he realized how well Coyote was structured in terms of like organizationally and like also like the community, or like being able to work with like your friends and like everyone's in it together, like no excuses. And like then he went on to other companies and he's like, okay, like not everyone does it this way. Like Coyote's obviously like stands out
for sure,
and stood out then. So like when you left Coyote, did you kind of sense that? You didn't mention that you were at a trucking company. I'm kind of curious to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Like, did you go to the trucking company like, wow, this is like completely like different like landscape, and they do things completely different. Like, can you talk about like, I don't know how that looked like?
So I definitely thought leaving Coyote that more companies in our space were, I wouldn't say as like sophisticated as Coyote, but I did realize like the lack of, that going into other companies.
Sure.
And even seeing successful companies on paper or within the news, things that we all read, understanding like there are massive gaps at those companies that Coyote had kind of nipped in the bud early on. Trucking company that I went to, well-established, probably 2,500 to 3,000 trucks.
Wow.
had probably been around for 40 or 50 years. And I walked in and I was kind of like, wow, this is different. We're working off AS 400. If you guys have ever worked off that, it's like,
I have not worked, and then the fortune of working off an AS 400, but I know.
Bazooka to AS 400.
Bazooka, which obviously, we could talk about the culture at Coyote all day, but the big value add was Bazooka and the lane matching and, the more carrier-focused CRM versus just the standalone customer. So that was a huge plus. And going to the trucking company now is like, wow, this is no technology.
Yeah.
And I think they're still on it today. A lot of other companies are still on a lot of it. And, it does work. So it's hard to knock on it. So I think at the time, being young and only working off of one technology, you just expect all that technology is the same. You're like, no, it might not be as good, but it still fulfills the purpose of that company.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. It was super corporate too. So, button-up shirt, tucked in slack, dress shoes every day. And then it was also ran by the family who, the grandfather co-founded it or founded it 40, 50 years ago.
Okay.
So the kids were the executive team. Their kids, which were around my age, you can tell were the next in line. And it was kind of like, all right, this isn't what I really signed up for. I lasted 5 months. I quit on a Friday and then flew out to Tampa, I think Sunday for Blu Grace. It was a quick turnaround.
Okay, so then take us a little bit through Blu Grace. Kind of curious about that. Just kind of tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into Rapido.
Yeah. So Blu Grace, I was recruited by former Coyote guy Mark Ford. So he was kind of the first carrier rep at Coyote.
Oh, I know. They're thinking of Mark. I think I met him in Tennessee, and he's in Tennessee now.
I think he's in Florida now, but at one point he did live in Tennessee.
Okay.
Bounced back and forth a little. He was, the carrier salesperson at Coyote. I think he ended up being EVP by the time we sold, and was also formerly at Backhaulers, within that realm.
Yeah.
So he had recruited me. I thought it was a good opportunity to learn from him, and then also help Blu Grace kind of start their truckload division. Back in the day, Blu Grace was a franchise model, and then it was very heavily focused on LTL. So they're probably best in class LTL companies out there. But at the time when I started, Warburg had come in, they had hired on my boss, and then they wanted to insert kind of truckload division. So I helped ramp that up, worked with Mark Ford, great experience there, but then, only lasted for 2 years before I started Rapido.
Okay. Question, Danny, you just mentioned, I'm pretty sure private equity company?
Yeah.
Can you say that again? The company?
Yeah, Warburg Pincus.
Yeah, okay.
So same company that invested in Coyote.
Yeah, and they invested in Blu Grace too.
Blu Grace, yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, cool, I'll go to Blu Grace. It'll be Coyote 2.0. And they've done, a fantastic job. They've got a good thing going over there. It just didn't stay around as long as I needed to.
Sure. You wanted to mess her up.
Yeah,
you wanted to
do my own thing.
Yeah. So now, I guess, it was 2020 when you started Rapido.
Yeah. So I quit my job, I think it was October 2019. I forget if I told you this on the first podcast, but I literally quit my job on a Friday. My wife and I went to the courthouse so we could get legally married because I knew I wasn't going to have health insurance.
Okay.
So quit my job, took a half day, went home, showered, threw on a suit. My parents came, her parents came, got legally married so I could have insurance. And that was damn, okay, this is happening. It's a somebody offered it. How do you have health insurance? You're in, baby.
Yeah, that's wow. Awesome.
That's and you met your wife at Coyote, right?
At Coyote.
Okay, cool. So okay,
and she's still in the industry today. Yeah. She's at Molo.
Got it. Was she at Coyote when you got married?
No. I think she was at MOLO by then.
Okay,
If
got it.
not, she had like a little bridge at a smaller company.
Okay.
Within Coyote and MOLO.
So you got health insurance.
I still have it today.
Awesome.
Fortunately. Yeah.
Perfect.
But right away, I'm like,
that.
hey, I'll try and start this, but like, I need some help from you.
Definitely.
You know,
I love
I need
that.
some support.
Definitely. So that was October 2019. And then walk us through, like, first of all, like Rapido, like, tell us about your co-founder. How did you become co-founder? And, you know, like the initial, I guess, discussions behind like why you wanted to start it.
Yeah. So funny enough, probably 6 months before I quit my job, I went to my boss, Mark, with the idea of using a staffing company at Blu Grace, because our driver services team, we call them like tracking, they're out in Tampa. And I just thought this could be a better way to find talent quick, retain them better. You know, obviously you get a cost savings as well. So I put a little proposal together. I worked on it like at night and on the weekend. I thought it was really good. Love Mark, but he's very particular about his process. So he shot me down like right away. It's like, no, you know, they don't know how we do things here. And selfishly, in my head, I'm kind of like, well, I know how you do things. Like, I've been part of your system for close to 9 years now, from Coyote and Blu Grace, and I understand the process, how you want things, you know, working on that front. And also my ego came into play, and I was kind of like, well, screw you. If you don't like my idea, like, it's a great idea. So I will go off and see if this is actually a business. You know, there was obviously like only one player in the market at the time, maybe a couple others that I wasn't familiar with. One player. So if you didn't work with that company, you didn't really have options. And I thought, well, you know, there's got to be options out there. There's got to be competitive advantages to each. And with more competition, you know, it breeds better value, better value for the clients, better people. Like, so I started looking into it. My wife, her family is originally from Mexico. So it was a quick kind of like conversation with her grandfather. He owned a business for a long time in Mexico. So I got on the phone with him. It's like, hey, how do we set up a legal entity? How do we do this? Quick call. And then it seemed like something I wanted to do. My wife was behind it. She comes from the industry. So she knew what an end product would look like, and thought it was a good opportunity. Now, mind you, I've probably come to her at this point with like 5 or 6 other ideas, and she keeps me in check.
That's good.
And she'll be like, no, like, that's not a good one. Like, have you thought about this? This was the first one I brought to her, and she's like, I actually think you might be on something. Like, this might work. You know, I'm familiar with it. So I just started drawing up. I never did like a formal business plan or anything, but, you know, you break out a forecast and say, okay, if we can sell this much and maybe we can make money at this point and have enough to reinvest and grow the business. Truthfully, I just wanted to do something outside of corporate world. So even if I started a business, made a little less than I was today, at least I had that freedom of being my own boss and, you know, doing things on my own. I've realized the longer it gets in my career now, being your boss is like a myth. Well, like, you always have a boss. It's always your clients. It's always your people. Like, you know, but at the time, just coming from a W-2 employee, it's like, yeah, I'd love not to have a boss. I'd have control of my schedule. It's like, well, that's not really It sounded pretty at the time.
EPay Manager, powered by OTR Solutions, is a back office automation and carrier payments platform that revolutionizes brokerage back offices with their proactive invoicing workflow, a centralized portal that gets you out of your email. Learn more about ePay by visiting epaymanager.com or text ePayFC to 80483 to see what they can do for your brokerage.
And then,
You're your own destiny.
Exactly.
But you have a lot of bosses afterwards.
For sure. So I wanted to control my own destiny. And then by October of 2019, I'd called Mark and I put in my 2 weeks. At the same time I put in my 2 weeks, I also pitched him. So it was my first sales pitch. So I said, hey, you know, I'm sorry, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. I'm not going to a competitor. I'm not competing with you guys. I have no desire to get back into brokerage. Like, I love it, but I think that ship has sailed. But I'm going to build this company. We're going to do this in Mexico. We're going to staff. You know, I told you before, I think it's something you guys need. Like, if you look into it, please keep us in mind. And then full circle, come February of 2020, they were our first client.
Love that.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, okay, he believes in me.
Yeah.
It's a good, like, confidence builder going into it, and maybe there's something here.
Sure. And then Roberto.
Yeah. Him and I started talking probably in July, or actually it was, probably started talking in July of 2019, maybe a little before, just on the phone. Just like, hey, he's living in Mexico. I didn't know Roberto at the time. My wife knew him from Coyote. So they got along really well. And she said, hey, Roberto's out in Mexico. You should probably talk to him. Just see how the lay of the land is there. Make sure that you could get the people you want to source and, you know, the area you'd want to be in. So we started talking more and more. We started talking. We kind of built this friendship on the side. And then I think August of 2019, because I just sent him a picture of this, but I flew to Mexico one night. It's like, took the Friday red eye, Saturday morning, landed, went and toured a couple office spaces. Mind you, like, I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
I had to navigate. I had like a little driver I got for the weekend who just followed me around, and he like doubled as my translator. So took me around a bunch of different areas, and then him and I went to lunch. Mexico lunch starts around like 2 to 4 p.m. So it was a later lunch. So I did like a bunch of meetings and stuff throughout the morning. I met with him. I thought it was going to be a 2-hour lunch. We polished off like 2 bottles of wine, went to his place, like went to another bar, watched a game or something. We were out till like 3, 4 in the morning.
Okay.
You know, doing God knows. I'm just having a fun.
Guadalajara?
This is in Guadalajara.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Guadalajara? Because I'm curious, like, was that your first time going there in August?
Time been ever in Guadalajara.
Okay. Like, how did it feel? Like, were you like, oh, wow, this is like, I don't know, cool? Or was it like, were you kind of on edge? I'm kind of hard. It's beautiful.
Yeah. For me, it was easy. So my wife and I met like 10, 11 years ago. Since we met, I started visiting Mexico quite a bit. Before that, I had done like the Acapulco, you know, the Tijuana, from San Diego, walk over. But that was all I knew about Mexico. So when we started dating, we were going, you know, Mexico City often, probably go a couple times a year.
Okay.
Did a bunch of the smaller cities in Mexico with her family. And like, so I had traveled to Mexico quite a bit.
Okay.
So traveling there solo as a gringo was, I don't know, it's like, whatever, this is fine. Like, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
But it's a really cool city. I mean, it's massive, kind of like Chicago in population size.
Okay. Well,
so it's got nice parts. It's got, you know, not so nice parts. You got to know where to go and know where to stay. And overall, it's very safe. I've never felt scared there or anything.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, it was easy to get by.
Cool. So you had an amazing dinner or lunch.
Yeah.
I guess lunch,
dinner,
wine,
drinks,
yeah,
dinner.
After a red eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what were like the next, like, I guess, stages of that relationship? Like, how did it progress from there?
Yeah. So I believe I had already found a second co-founder at this point when I started talking to Roberto. So it's a buddy of mine from college who had started a staffing company about 5 years earlier. He does industrial staffing, so they'll do commercial kitchens, they'll do warehouses, like they do forklift drivers, they do like a bunch of industrial type positions, and he's been very successful in that. So I had brought him in early just to say, hey, this is the idea I have. We went out to breakfast one day. At the end of the meeting, he said, hey, well, I'd love to be involved if you're actually going to do it. So he was already on board with me. So by the time I left Mexico and meeting Roberto, I had gone back to my buddy RJ is his name, and said like, hey, I think Roberto could be a good addition to start this with us. Like, he's willing to consult and help us, but I think we tell him like what we want to do and see if he wants to be, you know, like a formal co-founder of this venture with us. So RJ and I went back to Mexico probably like a month to 2 months after that. We had traded emails back and forth telling Roberto what we wanted to do and hopped on calls and been like, okay, we're going to come out to Mexico. We'll walk you through the entire forecast. We'll like show you what we want to do and the part you can play here. I forget exactly when Roberto kind of fully committed. It was either right before I quit Blu Grace or kind of right after. Either way, I was going to do this on my own. But then him signing on and him being a part of it really changed it from how I told you guys before, like, yeah, I'll make less money. Like, I just want more of a lifestyle business to, all right, we got a guy who's going to live boots on the ground in Mexico, help manage the office. Like, this could be bigger than we had expected before now that we have a good founding team.
So it was you three?
Us three, yeah.
Okay. RJ, Roberto, and you, Danny. Okay.
Yeah.
So you already, which is amazing, you landed your former employer as your first customer.
Yeah.
And what were like the hurdles with that? Like, or just like February 2020 comes around, a month before the pandemic. I know we discussed a little bit on the first episode 2 years ago, but like, what were you going to? Because I mean, there's a lot to get done, right?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest hurdle for me to start was like learning how to do business in Mexico versus the US. And I tell this story a lot to the new hires. Roberto and I talk to every single new hire class still today. Common question we get, but it was like starting a business in the US, you go on to get an LLC, it takes like 10 minutes, right? It's like $150, and then you get your EIN number, and then you're like good to go. Like, you have a business on it. Yeah, it's easy. It might take 24 hours for the EIN to like register, right? In Mexico, that process took like 2 to 3 months. I mean, it's thousands of dollars. You need to get lawyers involved. You need to write up bylaws for the company. There has to be like certain ownership percentages based on if you're a foreigner or not. And even something as little as getting the name approved. So, you know, you go online and do it in the States. It's like Rapido Solutions Group. Oh, no, that one's taken. Okay, we'll pick Rapido Solutions Team or whatever it is, right? Like, and then they approve it on the spot. Mexico, you have to send names into the government. So we'd send 3 in, like snail mail them in. They'd confirm or deny. We got denied like 3 times. So we picked this obscure Mexican Spanish name. Like, doesn't make any sense, but sure, it's just what they gave us. It was just like this learning experience from October until February when we started operating, like when clients and people were hired, where I was just like, man, this is kind of like madness. Like starting a bank account, finding accountants, finding lawyers, like hiring the HR staff to help recruit and everything. Like, there was a lot of building within those first couple months. And then once clients come in the door, I mean, you guys know, it's just like nonstop after that happens. Like, I had a little bit of a break. I wouldn't say a break. I'm still working every day, but you don't have the demands that you face when clients get involved and like when you hire staff. When that happens, it's just a whole new dynamic.
100%. I don't think most people realize like how awesome like America is in terms of starting a business, because I don't think it was to the extent that you had it, how bad it was, but I did try and incorporate an LLC in Poland, and Paul has his perspective on this too, but my perspective was atrocious being a foreigner, not having citizenship in Poland. It was really ridiculous. Like, for sure. It was, I remember I sent in snail mail paperwork with ink. I forgot which color was the problematic one. Either I sent it in black ink, and they're like, no, you got to sign it in blue ink or something like this. And I'm just like, man, I'm so...
that make no sense.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm so fortunate to, like, you know, be in the United States and be able to start a business here. So
100%.
That's a big hurdle. Yeah, I've opened companies in Poland, and having an LLC in Poland is nightmare, complete nightmare.
Yeah.
I still have one open. I got to close it down, but it's actually a nightmare to close it down too.
Yeah.
Thing it's like it's not easy to close it down. But okay, so Danny, you start right before the pandemic, and like not only is everyone going remote, but then also like the market's like going insane.
Yeah.
So like, and you just started Rapido. So like walk us through like all of that. Like,
yeah.
And then like, take us, I guess, then to like the present, but like, I'm curious like how that all like evolved.
Yeah. So pandemic hits also at the same time. I was supposed to get married. I think it was March 20th of 2020.
Wow.
So obviously the pandemic affects everyone different. For us, we had to push out our wedding, but we pushed it out like a week and a half to 2 weeks before.
Okay.
So I had to deal with that and the company going fully remote. I mean, candidly, we had no idea what the hell we were doing, right? It was just like, come to the office, we'll give you a box with a computer and keyboard, mouse, 2 screens, and we'll load you up, we'll send you home, be on at whenever 11 a.m. and we'll check in and we'll do the training from there. Like we just kind of navigated through it best we could.
How strict was it in Mexico?
It was pretty strict.
Yeah.
Yeah. So big cities in Mexico, it was pretty strict, especially for like professional companies. I'm sure there's companies in Mexico that said the hell with it. Like, we're not going to do this stuff. But most companies, I would say, had to abide by the rules. And then if we wanted to hire the people, like at that point, it was, I'm working from home or I'm not going to work for you guys. Right? Those were the options. I remember first week or two, we had started a class of 6 for a new client. So the client had never done any work from home training or managing. So we're like all learning on the fly. So it was messy, but you just kind of power through and figure shit out as you go, adapt to make the best of it. And that's part of like building a business for sure.
So it was like in March 2020, you had Blu Grace, and then you said another client too.
So Blu Grace started in February.
Okay.
March, we had another client start. I think we had 12 to 15 people at the company at the time.
Okay. And then you like really grew rapidly.
Yeah. So we hit we hit probably 2 or 3 months of small, like very little growth, maybe a couple people here and there each month, but it wasn't anything crazy. And then probably like July or August of that year is when we saw people coming in like, hey, I'm going to start with a team of 10. I'm going to start with a team of 8. By the end of 2020, we ended the year with about 85 people working for our client.
Remarkable. In 1 year, within 1 calendar year.
Yeah.
85 people. Like that's insane.
So
growth.
It was quick.
How did you like do that? Like that's like, I feel like.
So we pulled the Coyote model, separate offices, separate space, and that's why I think that's where that separation came into play in Lake Forest. Just we grew fast enough that we couldn't like procure enough office space in time. Sure. We had 2 different WeWork type co-working buildings.
So you were kind of back, not working remotely anymore, like.
Yeah. So I mean, probably come Q3, Q4. I can't remember exactly, but we were all back in office, and then we were at 2 different sites for a while. Had some teams in one site, some teams in the other. When I was in Mexico, I'd bounce back and forth. We'd have leadership kind of bounce back and forth. We'd do training in one office and then like tell them that they're going to go to another office, client visits, and you just manage through it again.
Nice. That's insane. Imagine like crazy. In February, you just have a few people, and then like by the end of the year, you're like 85. I can't imagine that. Yeah. That's awesome though. So like. And then 2021 was no different. It just continued.
Yeah, like 2021 was big growth. I think we saw the most growth in 2022.
Okay.
But 2021 was another big year. I think we ended the year with probably a couple hundred people, 2 to 250. Man. So that was big growth. Can't remember exactly when, but we did move into the current space that we're in today. So we're now all together. We've got a big office space. We probably got seats for 800-900 people in Guadalajara. So like space to grow into if we need to.
We've partnered with Ascend TMS, the world's most popular and top-rated transportation management system. You could use our referral code RA-FreightCaviar ! To receive 3 months of Ascend TMS for free. You can click the link below to learn more.
And when you were writing out your business plan, did you envision such rapid growth, or was it like kind of like a shock to you? You're like, wow, this is like insane.
It was faster than I thought, for sure. I thought what we could do in probably like 5 years, we ended up doing in 3. A lot of that was the market too, right? Like we kind of rode the wave there, and it benefited everyone. So in many ways, I'm lucky that that me and Roberto started the business when we did, because if we had waited till after COVID, I don't know if we would ever started it.
Sure.
We were like just there by 6 weeks or so.
And you'd refine some maybe processes and training procedures like over the course of 1 to 2 years in preparation for 2022.
100%. Yeah. That's cool.
So I guess tell us more about, Danny, like some of like maybe the hurdles that you go through, like what are like the challenges that you face maybe on a regular basis, like as a business owner, outsourcing, nearshoring to Mexico, like what are the, I guess, maybe typical challenges that you run into or you face?
I would say just a big challenge for me is I'm one of 3 employees that aren't in Mexico. So being removed and having, the ability to work from home is great, but I don't have that team camaraderie that I was so used to. Like I spent 10 years in logistics, going into the office every single day, bonding with the team, kind of all for one for all type mentality. So being removed from that sometimes is tough. So I try and make it to Mexico as much as I can.
How many times a year do you find yourself going?
I'm going probably about once a month right now.
Okay.
But I'll go 3 to 5 days at a time. So stay like a full week, which is good. It's great to get down there and see the team. But I wouldn't say I'm the best like remote manager. I'd much rather be on site if I could.
Sure. That's why like Roberto's like so key. Like that's so amazing that you like connected with him and did it with him, because like I when I was living in Ukraine, like they sent me to live in Ukraine because like they wanted like an American on site, and like it would just help tremendously. So but that's cool. I mean that's amazing. Roberto's on the ground. He's in the office. Right? Okay. And then you also opened a new office, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Opened León, Mexico in March of this year.
Okay. And that is where exactly in Mexico, if you were like look at a map? Like,
so it's about 2 hours northeast of Guadalajara.
Okay, got it. By car.
Kind of like pinned in the middle of Guadalajara and Mexico City.
Okay.
Just a little north if you look at it on a map. It's about a 2-hour drive.
Okay.
So it's easy for us to send a team back and forth. Like we have people go back and forth. We've got people living there full time. And then there's good flights in and out of there. So I've gone down probably 3 or 4 times. I'll probably try and get out there again in the next couple of weeks.
Cool. And which roles like does Rapido specialize in for outsourcing? Like, is there like specific, like maybe a few roles that like you do better than like anyone?
Yeah. We really try and focus on like sales, but more specifically carrier sales, or we'll do more of like app adoption type sales. So for freight tech companies, we'll sell into carriers. So the end user is still the carriers.
Okay.
We do a lot of tracking or logistics coordinators type roles. Everyone calls it something different, customer service, but the general call center type role, and then heavy on back office.
Okay. Got it. I am curious, Danny, about like what are like maybe some of the, I know you've had like some stories with like companies going under and stuff like that. I'm wondering like if you could maybe tell us about like some of like the crazy that like you've experienced like, you know, running Rapido? Because you probably experienced some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell us?
Yeah. I don't mind sharing. We've had clients not pay us. We've had clients go out of business. I feel like that's some of these lessons along the way are things you also take for granted when you go out and try and start a business.
Totally.
And, you know, not maybe realize the importance of even something as simple as cash management. Like I remember going in and doing my forecasts and everything. Like I don't think once I really thought about managing cash flow and making sure that we're in healthy positions. I would say that's one of my main roles now is like the finance side of things and focusing on a lot of that to make sure that we have, you know, enough money to operate and everything. Like that should be one of the CEO's focus, in my opinion.
And you're also utilizing your degree, right? Your finance degree.
Yeah. I'm back with things that I'm comfortable with for sure. Right. But one story, me and Andrew Greco, so our VP of sales, had come off a really solid trip. I think we visited a couple clients, a couple new prospects that we were trying to see. It was Friday, got back from O'Hare at like 4 p.m. and got a call from a client. They're shutting their doors. We had close to 20 people with them. So they terminated their entire onshore staff. You know, they canceled the contract with us, and then we're kind of sitting there going, oh shit, what do we do now? We have 15 people who are, you know, skilled employees that we need to transition to other accounts as soon as possible. So we're not getting held holding the bag at the end of the day. That one's, you know, still ongoing. We're still fighting with that company. I know that's not the only story about companies like ours, but yeah, I mean, that's what starting a business is. Sometimes you like run that risk and it happens. I talked to RJ right away. I'm like, hey, has this ever happened to you? It's, yeah, you know, it's, you're constantly trying to hunt down cash, and there's people that might not pay you here and there, and there's bad actors and stuff like that, and do the best you can to make sure that you get ahead of that with credit checks and everything. But sometimes it's out of our control. And that was one occasion where even the onshore team didn't know there was, you know, kind of like blood in the water. CEO went rogue, waited till literally kind of the last day. Apparently they couldn't get the funding that they thought they were going to secure on that day. And it was like, all right, we got to close the doors. Yeah.
That must have like definitely impacted you in so many ways. Cause like emotionally speaking, like the livelihoods of people, then like obviously like also just the cash flow from that customer, and like making like, I just can't imagine, like it must have been so difficult for you. But also like such a big lesson at the same time.
100%.
Because like now, like, I mean, you've been through that and probably maybe changed some things up, like maybe in the contract, or whatever it may be. Like, kind of like, well, like,
how did you guys end up handling a scenario like that? Like, you know, for example, the company's obviously going to go under, and there's people staffed by Rapido now. You guys find ways to transition them to other teams, and
just transition on the other teams. Do it with as little friction as possible, and try and also, you're also managing the relationships with the people too at the end of the day, which is important. So when it happened, of course, I react like probably anyone else would, right? I'm pissed off. I'm frustrated. I'm like, screw these guys. At the end of the day, I'm like, I also have to be level-headed and not let my emotions get into the next decisions, because we have 15, 20 people that we need to repurpose and think about their place in the company. And just because we're mad at the company that's no longer working with us, like we still need it to be a positive experience for our people. So even that transition has to be with the most kind of done with the most emotional intelligence that we could do, knowing that they're in a weird position too. Like they in some ways just lost their job, and now they're in this limbo stage from until we put them on another account. And who's to say that the next account will be the same type of role they want, or the same type of focus company that they want. So it's managing, you know, the personnel aspect and the human, just emotional aspect as well.
I'm curious, Danny, if you could like kind of tell us a little bit. Those are kind of like, I guess, the maybe bad story.
Yeah.
If you could take us a little bit, like tell us like maybe like a good story about like something that you were pleasantly surprised by, something like maybe like a customer said, or something along the lines where like you're like, wow, I love this, you know?
Yeah. So the Leon opening to me was one of those like very, very proud moments. And I say this because I was minimally involved in this entire process.
Okay.
So Roberto owned it, and he owned it with kind of like a temp team of people that we said, hey, we want you to work on this project. We're going to open Leon. I went down to Leon. I think it was the first week that we opened, just to make sure everything was kosher and everything was good to go. And I expected to walk in and not, be mad or anything, but be like, hey, we need to fix this. Like, this is off. Hey, do we double check this? And I got in, and it was like the smoothest week ever for having a new office. And I remember as we tried to do that back in the day, like with the different WeWorks and the different buildings and then moving it all into one building, it was always kind of madness. Like moving hundreds of people is not ideal. And granted, we weren't having to move people. We were opening up something new. But going into that situation and seeing how well the team executed on it, I was like, damn, I'm just proud. Like, you guys killed it. And it gives me a lot of confidence that we can do this in other locations at a fairly quick pace in the future.
I had I would say minimal experience like that a couple of days ago when we went to St. Louis. Yeah. I'm trying to push a update out for Shipper CRM, and I was driving the whole day. But I was like in the middle of the release. Yeah, and the team and I was like own it. And it's like it was like this, one of these times where you feel proud. Yeah. Feel proud, like, for sure. Damn, things can move along, and they can move along pretty well. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. It's a learning experience. Like, you feel that steps to the right people.
Yeah. And it was also cool because, that team that we put in place, we didn't have like deep experience in opening up new city offices or new offices in different cities in Mexico, right? There are a lot of people who like, hey, this is a good opportunity for you to shine. I know you've never done it before, but there's a lot of value in just figuring it out. Sure. And we trust you to figure it out. And we trusted them enough, and they all figured it out. And I was like, this is awesome.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of like what Steam Logistics did. Steve Cox, when we interviewed him, he was telling us like that when they were expanding to other cities besides Chattanooga, like they would like have someone like who was like based in like, I don't know, Des Moines or Minneapolis. And like, I think they're like, they reached out to Steam, and like, I think a couple of times it was like, hey, listen, like, I have this, experience. I want to open up an office Steam, and like they'd let them do it. Yeah. And like they said they've seen a lot of success with that. Just like entrusting individuals and like letting them do it and to expand. I'm curious, Danny, are you planning now, because you saw that, are you planning now to expand even further into more cities?
Definitely. Yeah. So we'll definitely expand in other cities within Mexico. We're also likely to expand into other countries.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. You want to talk about that or no?
I'll keep it a little close to the chest right now. Sure. I'm traveling to 3 countries in October. Okay. We've already done some travel into other countries. I haven't, but Roberto has. So we've got kind of a short list that we like right now, working with some consultants and basically tell them, hey, we want these 5 to 10 things, find the best location for us.
Love that. Yeah. Very, very cool. I guess I'd like to also discuss this, Danny. What are the pros and cons of outsourcing your team to Mexico?
Pros for us, number one, I think people do drive with cost savings. So I don't love like us driving with that, but I do believe that clients see the benefit. So that's usually the number one aspect of like looking into outsourcing or nearshoring. I think recruiting wise and just the type of talent you can get for these roles has increased over time to make it that you could get better talent than you could for some of these positions in the U.S. I think the reality of the workforce now in the U.S. is a lot of the jobs that we staff for, like a carrier sales role or a tracking role, they're not as desirable now. They're also, you know, late shifts and tough hours, and we've done these roles before. Like, they're just demanding roles. I still think they're very beneficial to the industry, but they're not something that like Gen Z is jumping at.
Sure.
And for better or worse, you know, it is what it is. So access to good talent. And then I think just kind of speed, right? If you're a company that wants to go out and hire 4 to 8 people, you need a full-time recruiting team. You need to get everyone involved. Generally, from what I saw, that can take anywhere from like 3 to 6 months. If you're saying, hey, I need 8 people to start in this training class, we could get that going in about 3 or 4 weeks. Like, our core competency is, you know, training, hiring, maintaining talent, and really making sure that they're productive for you at the end of the day. And then obviously, you know, moving into Mexico, you're not navigating any of that on your own. You're not dealing with the legal issues or the contracts or HR or payroll or anything like that. You know, all that stuff that I complained about earlier in the podcast. And like, yeah, it took us 3 months. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, we did that work, so our clients don't have to if they wanted to expand in Mexico. So it makes it pretty seamless for them.
Yeah, cool. Perfect.
Yeah, the abstraction of all that complexity, basically. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Now, like, Mexico currently is like in the news all the time.
Yeah,
like
nearshore is like the hottest, sexiest word in the industry.
Yes. Like, what have you seen, like, from your side? Have you seen more interest, like, in, I guess, nearshoring jobs as well? Or have you, like felt that impact of, like, Mexico being, like, in the headlines all the time?
I would say we've felt the impact. I take a little bit of a contrarian view when it comes to actually, like, nearshore cross-border shipments. But we have seen a difference. Most people come to us when they talk about nearshore cross-border shipments of like, hey, we just want to open in Mexico. Can you guys help us open the office in Mexico? So for us, it could be, again, as quickly as like 3 to 4 weeks to get them a satellite office in Mexico. I think all in all, though, the industry is really just figuring out how to operate nearshore. Not nearshore staffing, but more this cross-border, like how it works, get some subject matter experts involved first. I think it's a little bit of a bubble today. I think the interesting fact of like...
Explain.
I mean, it's such a big buzzword, but at the same time, I don't know how long it will kind of be there for everyone. I mean, it's not going away. Like, shipments are going to move from Mexico to the States. I think it's way more complex than anyone actually thinks it is. And we see it from a broker standpoint of, you know, you see the margins that you could make in these shipments, but maybe not have the experience, but ultimately think it's easy, and it's not. It's just so much more complex. Roberto did a study at Coyote to where I think it costs about 5 times the amount to operate a shipment in Mexico when it comes to cost to serve versus just domestic, you know, one drop. Yeah. So it's like navigating that and trying to figure out how to be successful in those shipments. Like, a lot of companies have failed. So
what's making that so much more expensive?
Find shippers fast with shippercrm.com. Shipper CRM is a FreightCaviar product, and it is the first U.S. shipper database and freight CRM. Stop wasting time searching for shippers. Shipper CRM is the fastest way to find the shippers you should be working with. Supercharge your sales process with Shipper CRM. Learn more by going to shippercrm.com.
Just the steps along the way to go through customs and the borders and like multiple parties involved. You know, it just takes more time and resources to operate. Everything's way more manual.
Do you think it's possible for a company to reduce those operating, like to streamline, just like how Rapido did streamlining, you know, of basically staffing in Mexico? Is it possible for like technology to help reduce those operating costs?
It's possible for sure. So I wouldn't say it isn't possible, but at the same time, it's very dependent on people changing their ways. I think we see that in many ways as like drivers and shippers today, of like they still do things the old school way on their old school software, and like
AS400
change. Yeah, I mean, they're big enough that they don't have to change. So when you throw in the complexity of just Mexico as a whole, I think it's amplified a little bit. I wouldn't say ever. I think Matt Silver is probably someone who's taken the bull by the horns there and done a good job in trying to make efficiency gains in that. We'll see what happens with like the elections coming up.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, China moving all their manufacturing to Mexico, or not all, but a good amount to avoid tariffs and stuff like that. Like,
it would be,
I don't know just how long that lasts.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting if there were to be between Canada, United States, and Mexico some type of a agreement that like Europe has, for example, traveling between Poland and Slovakia or Poland and Germany. You can literally just drive across the border. They're part of. No, I understand. It's very unlikely for it to happen, but like, what type of, if that were to happen, that would be pretty cool in my opinion if it were to happen. But yeah, maybe specific type of licenses or something. I don't know.
I mean, I hear a lot of freight brokerages getting into cross-border right now. I get emails too, like about like companies expanding the cross-border and stuff like that. So what I'm hearing here from you, Danny, is that it's a lot more complex. Everyone wants to do it because it's like the hot thing in town. And it's like everyone's talking about cross-border shipments, but you're saying there's like so many complexities that a lot of these brokerages eventually would probably be like, okay, like this is not for us.
Yeah, not worth it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
I would say the way
some are going to win a lot. Like
some can win big.
Yeah,
for sure.
big. Yeah.
There'll be big winners, absolutely. What we typically tell people that come to us and want to start an office directly for cross-border is like, who is the owner in the U.S., the stakeholder that has the expertise in cross-border, that can help train the individuals and help do this. Like, we shy away from, my carrier manager is going to run this team. And it's like, well, have they ever done cross-border before? No, but they'll figure it out. There's value in people figuring it out, like we just talked about, but Mexico is a different beast. I'd like insert an expert first. I'd make a big hire and then go balls to the wall after it.
Who do you think does cross-border well from brokerages? Like, I guess maybe you don't want to say it, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know if I would name companies, but most of the time what you see is it's the bigger players. It's kind of like the billion plus that have success moving into those cross-border shipments.
And they have specialists specifically for those people.
Yeah.
Because I know Matt Silver, like, he like did cross-border at Coyote, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So like,
Roberto did it too.
Okay. So okay, and that's why Roberto was in Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, there's like the experts were there.
Yeah.
And whereas like if a regular brokerage wants to get in, it's just like, you don't have.
If you're gonna commit, you have to acknowledge that it's a big commitment.
Got it. So Danny, now like more on the personal side, I know you got into running recently a lot.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering if like the responsibilities of being a CEO and like having the company grow, was that one of the factors that you think got you into exercising? Because like for me, for example, like I exercise every day. Not when I'm traveling though right now, but like typically I exercise every day in the morning because of like the benefits, like mental benefits, like of me being able to operate a lot better. Yeah. Like the company. So I'm just curious, like, was that one of the guiding forces behind it, or was it something else? Like, why did you get into running?
Yeah, I would say that's been like a good byproduct. Initially, that wasn't the goal.
Okay.
It was just, I want to exercise a little bit more. I've always done pretty good at the gym, but I did the standard bro split for like my entire life. And like, I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't know why I'm doing like chest, back, buys type lifts.
Sure.
So I wanted to get like a little more athletic, longevity. There's the VO2 max is like the new KPI for healthy living.
Did you know
that? Well, my Apple Watch has it. But that's like everyone's like, the higher your VO2 max.
Got it. I thought it was like one of those machines where you like get connected like oxygen.
No, I haven't done that yet. But So I'm like, yeah, I want to start running a little bit. I think what I've found and why I've leaned into it a lot more is more because of what you're talking about, like the mental aspect of it. I feel like it's freaking mental warfare. Like even trying to finish a race or get involved in one has been awesome. And then I also do feel the bigger Rapido gets, the more responsibilities I have and the more kind of dialed in I need to be. So when it comes to working out or eating healthy or not drinking as much, I've tried to veer towards kind of those types of things to keep me mentally sharp at work. Yeah. Because if not, I struggle. Like, I've done the clients, we go out, we booze, we have a good time, but then I just don't feel on the next
for like 2 days.
Yeah. I've struggled with that. Fun fact, TIA this year was the first conference I've ever been to that I didn't drink at.
I remember you telling me that too.
Yeah. I drank at TIA. I didn't drink at Manifest, I don't think. Maybe I did. I forgot. I don't think I drank at Manifest. But yeah.
Maybe I'm pretty good. But even if I have, 3-4 drinks on a night, I'm like, I'm not 100% the next.
For me, at Manifest, it was like nothing. And then the last day was just like, we went out, went straight to the airport.
Those were rough. Those were rough. 4-hour flight from Vegas. But yeah, so Danny, what are you looking forward to now? What are the things what are some goals that you have?
Yeah, the expansion in other office spaces will be fun. I think we're thinking about technology as well in the business, how we could leverage some of that, and maybe for our employees, especially like for our own internal operations, how we think about gaining efficiencies, really just overall growth. Like, I want to continue to grow. I want to make an impact. I want to be a big name in the industry, and we're just excited to keep on that path.
A lot of what's going on, I think, is going to be pretty critical to like a escape velocity for Rapido, in the sense that, like, with what a lot of the technology that's coming out right now, you guys will be able to basically take the workforce you have and literally just augment the workforce with this technology and literally basically provide the same, or no, not even the same, probably maybe an order of magnitude more value at quantity of the value that you guys provide to your customers, right? And that's at least, I don't know how you see it, but that's how I'm generally perceiving it. Is like, there's always a human element to a lot of this business.
100%.
And where can like a lot of the duplicative type of work that's currently being done, where it makes a lot more sense for humans to focus on the human part of the job, and, not have to like waste time doing the things that's not in there.
We very much see like technology and AI especially as tools, and how can we equip our people with the best tools possible to do the best job for our clients. And some of that will be to get rid of some of that repetitive work, and hopefully that upskills them a little better to deal with relationship side of things.
It's a lot of exception management, for example, that you just can't, you can't automate that type of stuff, right? So you can be you can be that much better at exception management because you just have that much, more human attention basically provided. But right now, there's only a certain amount of human attention you can provide because they got to do so many other things. So
there's a lot of companies out there too that are, trying kind of Gen AI type bots and things in our industry. And I think one area where we have a leg up is we have the client base right now. Where all those companies are trying to get into, clients or our clients as well. It's like, how can we take what we have today, maximize these relationships, and also maybe that is implementing some of our own technology or changing our model a little bit over time. So we're pretty excited about that. We work with a fractional CTO who we've worked with for about a year now. Came from a really, really successful BPO company. So gets the BPO space, the outsourcing space, gets how like big call centers kind of set up their agents. And even though we see our industry much different, we can take a lot of the best practices there, combine them with the best practices from the industry, and maybe make something that's pretty cool.
Okay. Well, Danny, we got to wrap it up here.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it was great. Again, for having me.
Before we stop recording, is there anything that you'd like to say or anything to finish it off with, or are we good?
I'm good. I don't have anything else really. Thanks again for having me. It's been a couple of years, so I think this was valuable for
Definitely. No, I had a great time here in Chicago. If anyone wants to connect with you on LinkedIn or get in contact with you, Danny, what's the best way?
LinkedIn is probably the best place to go for me. Just Danny Frisco on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get more active on X as you guys see.
I love it.
I kind of like the personal vibe of X, where I don't feel it as is common on LinkedIn.
I don't have to be as protective on X as I am, I don't know, on other platforms for whatever.
Yeah, a little more casual.
Reed just does whatever, and it does work.
Yeah, it works really well. Whatever social media he's on, he does what he wants.
Yeah, he does what he wants. It honestly works the best. You just do what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily FreightCaviar Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, or if you didn't, leave a review. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any feedback. If you'd like to have more FreightCaviar content, go to freightcaviar.com and subscribe to my email newsletter.